Mook and a Mike, hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet Billy O'Connor.
My brother Frankie, brother. How you doing?
Good. It's October 31st. What are you dressing up as tonight?
Oh, yeah, for Halloween, huh? I'm going to go as an Egypt.
But you go as an Egypt every week, unless you go as a goose gal tonight.
No, I'm not going to go as a goose guy. I don't want to overdo it. I'm just going to go as an Egypt. This way I don't got to wear any makeup, no bullshit, no worries. You know, this is unusual seeing you this close. You know, up close like this. You're up close and personal.
Yeah,
you're older. You're a lot older than I imagine.
Just try to take it easy. Just try to take it easy today, yeah?
I always take it easy. No worries.
So what do you want to talk about today?
I don't know. Halloween don't interest me that much anymore. You know, like it was when I was a kid. It was like legal begging. You know, it was like a day to shake people down. You know? In my neighborhood, like you're 11, 12 years old, you go, well, just throw some cork on your face and shake everybody down. Go knock on all the tenements and get a big bag full of candy. People throw you pennies. I'm talking about 56, 57, you know. It was a legal shakedown, you know. That's all it was for us.
Did you put cork on your face?
Yeah, I used to wear my old man's hat. I put an old man's hat on. I tell you the truth, one day I was at this woman's house, and I'm knocking on the door, and I got a big paper bag, because that's what we had. We had a paper bag full of, you know, candy. And some people would throw pennies and shit in there. And I'm knocking on this woman's door, and this woman goes, "Oh, Mike, come here. Look at this. These are the costumes I love. These are the costumes. Look, the homemade costumes." And all I had was some cork on my face and my old man's hat. And I'm saying to myself, why is this chick getting all excited? She goes, look at his dungarees, how they got the patches all over it, you know? And the sneakers are all taped up. I said, this is my regular clothes. I said, what? I felt a little insulted, you know? She threw a couple of cents at me like I was doing something.
Yeah. So let's, that was fascinating.
Yeah, I'm a fascinating character. Yeah.
Actually fascinating.
Halloween.
That'll get us into our guest. So our guest this week is a longtime head golf professional at the links at Pebble Beach, famed golf course. It's a delight for me to have my pal Chuck Dunbar on our Mick and Mook and a Mike today.
It's great to be here.
Good. So
checking out the swing on the screen there, man. I'm blown away there.
That's the AT&T.
What do you say when you say head pro? How many pros are there up there?
Well, when I was there for I worked for Pebble Beach Company for 20 years, and I was at Pebble Beach as the head pro for 16 and a half of those years.
But when you say head pro, how many pros are there?
Well, I had 7 actually. 7.
There's 7 pros.
7 assistant pros, and 2 other assistant managers that were pros. So
Wow!
I had a stable of 9 guys that were at various stages of the PGA program. You know, I mean, there's golf professionals and there's professional golfers. There's guys that make a living playing golf on tournaments. You know, the Bryson DeChambeaus and
right,
and the Paul Caseys and Tiger Woods. And then there's the guys that manage golf courses and give lessons and run tournaments and manage the business of golf. So those are the guys that are in the PGA of America. So that's the difference.
So not everybody has to obviously be Tiger Woods to make a buck playing golf.
No, but I was certified as a PGA pro, but on the business side of it. But part of being a PGA pro in the PGA of America is you have to pass a playing test as well. So there's a portion of that, and they want you to play in section events and things like that. But so playing golf is a portion of being a PGA golf professional. So when you see like on TV or watching a golf tournament, and they have a section where they'll talk about chipping or the right things to do of putting, give you some swing tips, and then they'll say, you know, if you want to learn more about your chipping game, go see your local LPGA or PGA Pro. So that's I'm one of those guys.
And the PGA tournament, the PGA major tournament, is open to everybody who's a member of the Professional Golfers Association, and they hold certain spots open for the winners of the club's tournament.
Right,
correct?
Club Pro Championship, things like that. So there's some exemptions into the PGA Championship as far as the major goes, but that's that PGA Championship is run by the PGA of America as well as Ryder Cup.
Right.
So those are not USGA events or they're not PGA Tour events.
So, Chuck, why don't you tell us a little bit about your story? How'd you get to Pebble Beach?
Well, I got into golf basically after college. I wasn't like a country club kid who grew up, with my own clubs, and I had a mismatched set of clubs and played a little bit of junior golf, which was just like a week in the summertime at my parents' or my grandparents' club in Sacramento, California, and learned to play a little bit there. But I really wasn't a golfer.
How old were you now? About?
Oh, this is just in my youth. I'm 10, 12 years old.
Oh, okay.
But I wouldn't consider myself a golfer. I went to, in the summertime, we'd go out to the country club that my grandparents were members of. And they'd sign me up for a junior golf clinic, which was like a week or 2 weeks of lesson time with one of the pros, the pro or assistant pro. And so I think it was just so they could have some quiet time by the pool.
Yeah.
Just get rid of the kids.
Babysit,
Yeah. So let the pros babysit the kids for a little bit. And I didn't really play in college or anything like that. I never played like high school golf or college golf. But I was traveling after college. I graduated from Sac State University. And then I traveled a little bit and went to Florida and worked in a Club Med. That's where I met my wife and started working in the golf field because it just happenstance. I happened to buy a set of clubs on my way out of town, going to Florida to take up this job. And I'd worked for Club Med in Mexico.
What part of Florida were you in Club Med? Where was that?
Port St. Lucie.
Port St. Lucie?
Yeah.
You have a Club Med there? Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's still there.
And you started playing
it's doing booming business right about now, I imagine.
I doubt it, yeah.
Yeah, Jesus.
It's probably closed down.
Everybody,
sure.
yeah.
But so anyway, I knew someone else that was already at the club who I'd worked with in Mexico. And I said, hey, what's this gig like? Is this worth coming to Florida? And he says, yeah, but bring a set of golf clubs because there's really not much to do. It's more of a family village where they take a lot of day trips. So we get to play golf for free here. So I said, I really don't. I'm not much of a golfer. I know how to play a little bit. So I ended up buying a set of golf clubs from Costco. I think they were all made out of pot metal because I broke half of the heads off at the range.
Billy, pot metal.
And but slowly but surely, I played enough to where I got pretty good at it. And 6 months later, I transferred into the golf department.
Let me ask you, you said like slowly but surely you got better at it. You got better quick. I mean, are you a regular athlete? Were you an athlete at anything else? Athletic? I mean, like...
I was decent. I played some soccer, played some football, but I wasn't outstanding.
But 6 or 7 months is kind of fast to get good at golf, no?
You know, when I landed in Florida, Port St. Lucie in Florida, with a set of crappy clubs from Costco, I was probably a legitimate 36. You know, if I played the ball down.
Right.
And then after playing as much as I did in the time that we had off, and I got to play free golf, and also we had a par 3 course there, I probably became more like anywhere between a 16 and a 20. And I wasn't taking lessons. It was just figured out by myself.
How long did it take you to go from a 16 down to a 0? And how long did it take you to get to Pebble Beach?
That's a good question.
See that? I asked a good question.
You asked a good question.
Good.
Take a bow. Take a bow, Frank.
So basically, wanted to get in the golf business. My wife and I got married, moved to Santa Cruz, where I found a job at the golf course that my grandparents' beach house was. So we went there for like an anniversary of sorts. Found a job and just said, let's move down here. You know, this is a great place to live. Monterey Peninsula, kind of like north of the Monterey Peninsula, but Santa Cruz. And worked there for 2.5 years. Got into the PGA program, was doing all my book work, and passed the playing test. And at some point, I think remember the El Nino years? Sure, you remember
Sure.
El Nino years? I think it was like 90, 98, and 97.
Whatever.
Somewhere in there. And I figured that I was in the right business, but I wasn't at the right course because there was no emphasis on customer service.
Can I back you up a second? What is the players test exactly? How low do you got to shoot to be in a players test?
It's a 36-hole test in one day, and it's about you probably have to shoot 77, 78.
Each round.
Yeah, about that. That should get you in on the number. If you shoot better than that, it's not like a tournament. It's either pass or fail. That's it. So that would allow you to enroll in the program. If you're working at a club that has a PGA Pro, that's certified Class A Pro, so you become an apprentice. So I worked at this club as an apprentice, got my credits, passed the playing test, did the book work and the testing, which has to do with golf carts and merchandising and teaching, running tournaments, all that type of stuff, right? Everything that you'd expect to see at a pro shop. And then after 2.5 years, I felt like I wanted to be part of a bigger operation. And so we had already purchased a house, a duplex. And from Santa Cruz, I said we could move to South Carolina, Palm Springs, Arizona, Scottsdale, and there's plenty of golf opportunities, but that would require us to sell our place. And the real estate market, the way it was, it was fluctuating. I didn't know what was going to go on. So I figured, the only place I could work and not have to sell our place, the type of facility that I wanted to work at, was probably going to Pebble Beach Company. So I applied.
Bottom line was you had to get good enough to get to Pebble Beach because that's where your house was.
Yeah, well, I wasn't good enough playing-wise. That wasn't really the key. It was just being an all-around knowledgeable person when it comes to the retail sales and the fitting of golf clubs.
Did you get down to a scratch golfer?
Yeah, I did.
So you got to Pebble Beach when?
1995.
1995. So that by that time you were a scratch golfer.
Yeah.
So when we talk about scratch golfer,
and I played every day.
Yeah.
I played. If I had to close the shop, I'd come in at 12:30 until like 9 o'clock, and I'd play in the morning before I worked. And if I had to open the shop, I'd play after work. So every day I was playing.
What's the lowest round you ever shot?
That course that I was working at was the lowest round I've ever shot, which was 64.
Wow.
And that was with a bogey.
Wow.
Yeah. But
you didn't choke. You didn't choke that day.
Well, I remember
for sure.
I was playing with my brother-in-law, my stepfather, and his friend, and myself. There was 4 of us, and I remember getting behind a eucalyptus tree on this one hole, and my stepfather says, "Just take a free drop over there." And this was on the back nine, so like I said, I think it was number 11. And so I remember thinking, I'm like 8 under at this point. Or,
wow.
Not 8 under. Excuse me. I was like 6 under at that point.
Right.
6 under on the front nine.
And you didn't
shot 30 on the front nine.
And you didn't want to negate the entire round.
And I was making everything. I mean, I was just trying to lag it on these. I had some squirrely putts and some long putts, and I had some short putts, but everything was going in. 3-tiered green, up 3 tiers, make it.
Wow.
The first 2 holes, actually, I lipped out and I said, "Oh gosh, it's not going to be one of these days." But things turned around, and so when I got to this hole where I got behind the eucalyptus tree, I took an unplayable and took a penalty, where I ended up making bogey, but made enough birdies coming in to shoot 8
That's
under.
unbelievable.
And what's the lowest round you ever shot on a major golf course that the touring pros were playing?
Well, that 64 is the lowest, like I said.
Right.
But that course was a par 72, but now it's a par 71. It should be a par 70.
Right.
And,
But still, 64 is 64.
Yeah.
Doesn't
And-
matter.
Yeah.
And some of the holes have, they're kind of in these valleys, so you can hit it right and left, and they come back down to the fairway. So,
But don't they make the course tougher when the pros play there? Like when they have like a tournament, don't they make the greens like?
Not necessarily.
No.
No, I define it as this: the USGA, when they come in and Pebble was hosting like whether it was the 2000 or the 2010, both U.S. Opens that I was a host pro of, and was very much a participant in the planning stages of. The USGA comes in and they set up the course. They define the setup, where the fairway lines are going to be, how tall the rough is going to be, how fast the greens are going to be, et cetera, et cetera. They're what I call the great protectors of par. They want over par to win it, right? And in 2000, when Tiger Woods won, I mean, he was the first guy to win a U.S. Open with double digits under par.
Was he 15 under par?
Yeah,
I think.
He was 12 under par, but he'd won by 15 strokes.
Okay, so the number 2, the runner-up was 3 over.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was 3 over, and that was Ernie Els and
Doesn't make any difference.
Jimenez.
So they tell you how high the rough has got to be? They tell you?
They dictate to the superintendent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my question because obviously the Masters coming up in 2 weeks. How you have been back to Augusta several times to watch them, how their preparation of the course. Have you ever played Augusta?
I've played a few times, yeah.
And who have you played with?
The first 2 times I played were what they call Purveyor's Day, or Vendor Days, or I think the caddies play, and it's like the week before they close down for the summer. So I was invited to one of the vendors that worked with Augusta and also worked with Pebble Beach Company in selling yardage guides.
And you played also with Arnold Palmer.
I got the chance to play with Arnold Palmer. So the first 2 rounds were a different experience. The third time I went to play golf was a thank you set up by Peter Uberoth, who I think kind of spearheaded everything. And there was like 8 of us that went back, and were joined by Arnold Palmer, Dick Ferris, Peter Uberoth, and Toby Wilt. Toby's a big, I think he's a Vanderbilt guy.
Okay.
And he won the AT&T Pro-Am portion of it with Brant Snedeker one year.
Okay.
But when you play there during the regular season for the members, you have to be accompanied by the member.
Right.
So those guys were, we had 4 guys that were members. Arnie,
Ferris. Whatever.
And Toby Wilt. So there's 3 foursomes. There was 3 foursomes. That's 12 of us. So 3 groups. So those guys had to play in. Each of them had to play in one of the groups. So we kind of rotated around for 2 or 3 days, and everyone got to play with Arnie.
When you're playing with a guy like Arnie Palmer, does it intimidate you? I mean, do you feel like you shoot worse than you normally would?
No.
No.
I'll tell you why. Because he's got this magic about him. He had this magic about him. The first time I met him was on the first tee at Pebble. And he was remarried to a woman by the name of Kit Gothrop. And Kit was actually a good friend of my mom's. They had been in junior league together in Sacramento. And so he was remarried after his first wife died.
Winnie, yeah.
So I saw actually the 2 of them over by the first tee podium. And I knew he was coming. We all knew he was coming.
Yeah.
It's just word leaks out whether you're on the inside of the operation or the outside. I mean, when a guy like that shows up, it's just like, bees to honey.
The reason I asked is because when Frank played with Lee Trevino, in the book we mentioned, like you were hitting the ball out of bounds the first couple of holes, and they told you, Frank, relax, Frank, nobody's here to see you, right?
Yeah, yeah. So, continue.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So the first time I met him, I walked out there and Kit Gothrop saw me, and she says, "Oh, Charlie Dunbar," because I was Charlie as a kid, growing up as a youth. But I later changed, kind of went by Chuck. Anyway, so she says, "Arnie, I want you to meet someone. This young man, I was good friends with his mother, and if I dig deep enough, I'll find some pictures of him running around my backyard in dirty diapers or nothing at all." I'm thinking this is a great introduction to Arnie Palmer. And he just looks at me and goes, gives you the wink and the thumb up. And I said, "Nice to meet you." And so, but within minutes, he just had this way of making you feel like you've known him for a long time. He put you at ease. He used your name and call you by name.
I actually saw Arnie up at Hastings on Hudson, the oldest golf course in America. Actually, the oldest golf club in America is St. Andrews in Hastings on Hudson. Yeah. And my ex-wife used to work there in the office, right? So one day she says to me, it's the 100th anniversary of St. Andrews. She says, and Nick Laus redesigned the course, right? And he's having like Arnie Palmer, all these pros are coming, and the Dinah Shore. Would you like to come? And I says, yeah, what are you, crazy? So it was like a Monday. And the reason I ask you about being intimidated, it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, 10 to 8 in the morning. I'm watching these 2 guys on the tee hitting practice balls, right? And this guy's hitting the ball like you would hit a ball, like a machine, like he's just a good golfer. And who comes walking out of the clubhouse at 2 minutes to 8 but Nicholas? And he goes down next to the guy and he says to the guy, you mind if I hit a few? And the guy goes, no, I got... Jesus, like this, the Nicholas, right? So I said to my buddy, I said, watch this. I said, I bet this guy falls apart. Sure enough, I swear to God, the next 7 swings he took, he looked like me out there, But Nicholas was dour, man. He looked like he was on the last round of the Masters. He didn't smile. He didn't nothing. When Arnie showed up at 1 o'clock, he showed up in a limousine. He got out. hit a ball, put his arm around two girls. Come on, girls, let's take a walk. You could see how he was like just dynamic.
Speaking of Arnie and girls, why don't you tell a story about another time you met Arnie?
Well, it wasn't when I met Arnie,
Oh.
but it's a story that a PGA Tour pro told me.
Okay.
I think I know the story you want me to tell. So apparently, as word on the tour went, Arnie was quite the ladies' man, and we always kind of had this inside bet at Pebble. We'd always discuss it. Who do you think got more tail in their heyday, Arnie or Clint? Because they're both co-owners of Pebble Beach Company. And who knows? I mean, no one's gonna ever know. But between the two of them, that's half the population. There's a lot of stories out there, encounters, I'm sure. But anyway, Scott McCarron, who was from Sacramento, as I was,
And a pro golfer.
and actually
Successful pro golfer.
doing very well on the senior tour, dominating on the senior tour. But when he was just getting on tour, he got invited to the Bay Hill Invitational, Arnie's tournament, right? And that's he stayed half his time in Latrobe, and half his time when he wasn't traveling for business reasons or different things that he had on his agenda, golf course site business and things like that, or Bay Hill. So Scott McCarron is really young on the tour. I think he went to UCLA. He was a Bruin, and I'm having breakfast with him during one of the AT&Ts because his caddy at the time was one of my best friends growing up. So the three of us went up to have breakfast at the Gallery Restaurant that overlooks the putting green at Pebble Beach. And he tells me this story about Arnie. I don't know how we got talking about Arnie, but he says, I got a great story about Arnie. He goes, so I'm at the Bay Hill Invitational, my first time there, and I can't wait to meet Arnold Palmer, the king. So he says, so I ended up playing a practice round, and I think Arnie was about 3 groups behind me, maybe half an hour behind me. So I got finished, I took a shower, and I'm sitting on a bench, lacing my shoes, and in comes this, you could feel the magnetism that was this aura, right? Yeah. And he said, I heard this booming voice that was very distinctive, and it was Peter Jacobson. And if you hear Peter Jacobson's voice, you know who it is. It's like Jim Nance. You know that voice, right? Yeah. You hear it, you know. And the word on tour was that Arnie was hung like Ali Dar, right? I mean, it was big, right? He was the big unit. So Scott says Arnie's walking through the locker room with a towel around his neck, buck naked, and he's really showing it off, right? And he turns the corner and he puts his foot up on a bench, and McCarron's right there, and he's thinking, maybe not the best time to introduce myself and shake hands. Not when he's naked. That's not a good naked, right? But he goes, so I'm tying my shoes and my head's down, and he goes, but I couldn't help but take a peek and see if the story was real. He goes, let me tell you something, Chuck. I'm not gay, but I couldn't take my eyes off that thing. And as soon as he looks up and catches Arnie's eye, Arnie knew he knew that Arnie had busted him. And Arnie just looks at him and winks and says, that's why they call me the king, kid.
I love it.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Who all have, tell me a few of the pros that you really like, and then tell me a few of the pros that you're maybe not as fond of.
Sure. Well, let's see. McCarron's a great guy. Trevor Immelman, I got to know him a little. I think
he was a Masters winner several years
won the
back.
Masters and then kind of just disappeared.
Right.
And did some announcing after that. Patrick Harrington was always a nice guy. Phil Mickelson was always great.
Yeah, Mickelson's a good guy, yeah?
Yeah.
See, I've heard otherwise from
and
Mickelson because I know some people who know him through his gambling, and he's not quite as nice a guy as he pretends to be. But that's just me.
Well, we didn't have locker rooms for the AT&T, or we did for the Open. We had to build them though, but they were temporary. Mm-hmm. But for the AT&T, we wouldn't have locker rooms. But Mickelson was always making sure that whoever helped him out, it's $100. Pull off a sheet.
Oh yeah,
$100 all
so
day
he's
long.
a sport.
And when he, like for example, when I was making tee times for the practice rounds before the U.S. Open, I mean, he called me personally. It wasn't Bones. It wasn't a manager. He'd call and say, "Hey, Chuck, can I come out and play first thing in the morning on so and so date?" 2 weeks before the Open was, like in 2000 or 2010. And he was just super nice. He was always nice to me. During the 2010 U.S. Open, my son carried a sign for him, like the leaderboard sign, Standard Bearer, and was great to my son. And so you hear these stories that the other pros really didn't like him because they've always felt that he was a little bit phony. But by the same extent, he was doing the right things. He would be very gracious to the crowds, the patrons, the spectators. He'd sign everything.
What do you mean, Chuck, when you say he was a phony? In what way? Why did the other pros think he was
they just think that he was always putting on a show.
And why did you say, Frank, before that the gambling stories you heard about him, he was kind of a hump? Gambling on golf, you mean?
Gambling on everything.
Oh, yeah? He's a heavy gambler?
He's a heavy gambler.
Yeah, there was one AT&T that he showed up. This is after the Baltimore Ravens won. And Trent Dilfer was a quarterback. Remember that Super Bowl?
Sure.
Okay. So he had bet, and everyone knew this at the range because he was bragging about it at the AT&T, because this AT&T is right after the Super Bowl. Super Bowl Sunday,
and then AT&T.
And then Monday after is the first practice round of the AT&T, right? So he's just coming off a big victory with the Vegas gamblers because he had put something like $20,000 down on Baltimore at the beginning of the season to win the Super Bowl. He won. And so it turned out to be a couple $1 million.
Yeah, because he got huge odds. He got like 30-1
right.
odds or something. Yeah, that's amazing.
And Dilfer was a quarterback, so he's probably by stats not the greatest quarterback to ever win a Super Bowl. Because I think he had more interceptions than he had passes.
Was the Ravens' defense.
Touchdown passes, but
so he's a heavy hitter, right?
Yeah, he's.
But I would consider him a good guy because he was always good to the fans.
He was always good to your people and the fans, he made your job easier.
Yeah, but the pros wouldn't want to set up next to him and hit balls or anything like that. He was left alone. The pros didn't really. I don't think he spent a lot of time talking with the guys, and whereas on the opposite end of the spectrum, Vijay Singh, first guy to get to the range, last guy to hit balls. I mean, we'd be waiting to clean up the range, and he'd still want to hit balls in the dark. Wow. So and
but let me interrupt you. So rather than you tell me, I know Derek's got some pictures. So why don't you put up a picture, and then Chuck could comment on the person that you put up. So you can't put up a wrong picture, Derek, unless you put up a picture from Ken Bentley, who's going to be joining us in a little bit. So we'll just keep talking while you're.
So have you played golf on Ireland at all, by any chance?
Well,
I have.
There's an Irish golfer, Patrick Harrington.
Wow.
So that was somewhere around 2003 or 4 or 5. I was when I say I played in the AT&T, I didn't play as a pro contestant. I was a
marker.
Not a marker so much, but my ball counted for the team event. So Andy Garcia was my partner, and in this case, Stankowski was his professional partner at the beginning of the tournament. But Stankowski had a wrist injury that flared up on him. So 2 holes into his second round at Poppy Hills, he says, "I got to pull out. I'm going to just damage my wrist even more." So Andy's stuck without a partner, and he's got to be in the tournament. So they call up me real quick and say, "Hey, we need to get you out to Poppy Hills pronto and take Stankowski's place to be Andy's partner," which meant I played. By the time I got there, they probably had 4 holes under their belt. So I played 14 holes at Poppy, and then the next day I was his partner again at Pebble Beach at the 9 o'clock slot, right in the thick of things, with Mickelson in front of me. George was in the group, and I already known George because he bought a house in Pebble Beach, and he used to come out and play, and he and I would go out in the afternoons and we'd call it Pebble Beach Country Club. So we'd wait till the last golfer would make the turn, and then we'd play the front 9 like twice with nobody in front of us or nobody in back of us. So we did that a number of times, and then we go to the.
Who's the best celebrity that you ever saw play golf? I mean, other than the pros. I mean,
Oh well, some of the baseball players were great.
Really?
And they'd have.
Well, there's one now.
One baseball player.
Yeah, baseball players. Tony Romo was a football player, but Matt Cain, Those two guys could just absolutely bomb it. They would be they could almost hit the green on the first tee.
Wow.
Well,
So that's plus.
Well, Johnny Bench, who you're seeing with there, I think he was he played on the senior tour.
He played on that
celebrity tour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Johnny's a really good golfer. He
Yeah.
goes, 72, 73 in his time. At Cooperstown, they have a plaque on maybe the 10th hole of the cobblestone golf course, or whatever the name of it is, where he hit a drive 335 yards.
Wow.
In the old days.
Yeah.
So, what's your experience?
Yeah, with the equipment.
What's your experiences with Johnny?
Well, actually, through you, I got the opportunity to be invited to one of his charity events that he does with
Dougie Flynn.
Doug Flynn.
Yep.
And it's a
Matthew Mitchell.
charity event of the Bluegrass in Lexington, Kentucky. Obviously, it didn't happen this year. Hopefully, it happens next year. But it's funny because he had come to Pebble Beach, and I was there at Pebble Beach at the time. And I think he had a conversation with you, Frank, and you said, make sure you say hi to Chuck. Mm-hmm. So I hadn't met him before, but he was like a boyhood idol to me. I collected his baseball card.
Sure.
And,
as good as it gets.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to me, I remember the Cincinnati Reds and the Big Red Machine.
Sure.
I was a kid, a little league player, and so you looked up to these guys. And after the game, you'd get a ticket to get a snack and a pack of baseball cards or something like that with that crappy gum in it. And so he was like a boyhood idol, right? So I was fortunate to get invited to their event, but before that, I did meet him briefly. I did not meet him briefly before that. I had a chance, kind of like two ships passing the night. He came to play Pebble. Frank said, say hi to Chuck. He's the pro there. So he came in, asked where I was. Someone said, I think he's in a meeting. He went up to the range, came back down, asked again. No, he's still in a meeting. He should be back soon. Came back after his round, asked where I was. And I think I'd gone home by that day or by that time or something like that. Went to my kid's lacrosse game or something like that. But without meeting him, when I first showed up in Lexington after getting the invite to play in this celebrity pro-am, and I think that was the year that you couldn't play, so I was kind of subbing for you, right? But you went.
Yeah.
But you went to the event despite the fact that you weren't playing. I think you were on injured reserve, but
I was on injured
reserve.
And
I walked into the hotel and I saw Johnny, and he turned around and he goes, "Chucker!"
Wow.
I don't know how he knew who the heck I was.
Wow. That's really cool. So really, really class guy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Class act.
Again, another guy who could make you feel comfortable or at ease
in a second.
So quickly.
In a second. Next photo. You'll be able to. Oh,
that's Jack, huh?
That's Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, and he's an interesting guy. I mean, he didn't have the charm and charisma as Arnie, or doesn't have the.
I don't think too many people have the charm and charisma of Arnie Palmer. I mean, you can see why he was Mr. Golf.
But I probably have met Jack, have encounters with Jack maybe a dozen times. And every time I don't think that he knows who I was. Whereas, he didn't know.
When I saw him, I only saw him. I didn't talk to him, but he looked very intense. He looked like he was, he was playing the 18th hole of the Masters or something.
You know who's like that with me? Is Eddie Murray. I've been with Eddie Murray. Eddie Murray's a Hall of Fame baseball player, and I've been with Rod and Eddie Murray come along, and maybe 24 times. It's got to a point that Rod now says, "Eddie, you know my friend Frank," and he says, "Oh no, nice to meet you, Frank," and then Rod cracks up. It's too funny.
Well, I can imagine. I can't imagine how many people have met.
Oh yeah.
And you can't expect him to know everybody. But I'll tell you, getting back to Phil Mickelson, he has an affinity for names. So when I introduced my son on the first team as his standard bearer on Friday of the U.S. Open in 2000, he said, "Hey, where's your dad?" Because I just talked to him on the phone and made him a tea time, a couple weeks before. But he said, "Where's your dad, Chuck?" And so he remembers names. Arnie remembers names.
Johnny Bench, apparently.
Johnny Bench will remember his name.
Yeah.
I mean, they have that gift. But when my encounters with Jack were, he was either really nice or he's a sourpuss. But it just depends. And he can turn on a dime.
Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah, she was very nice. She came out. I remember she came out. She had this thing called Oprah's Book Club.
Yeah, sure.
And, yeah.
Can we get If These Lips Could Talk in Oprah's
Yeah,
book?
forget about it. It's $1 million. That's $1 million sells right off the bat.
And so
She can sell the phone book and sell $1 million, no problem.
They taped a little section called Oprah Tries Something New. So since she was going to the Steinbeck Library over in Salinas as part of her book club tour thing, she came over and tried playing golf. And
She had never played before.
she only played the 18th hole. Yeah. So that was something new.
Did she buy the course when she got off? Or just
No, she didn't. But
you get a golf course. You get a golf course. You get a golf course.
But she was very nice. I was very impressed. And, I mean, she was very genuine.
Great. Great. Next.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there he is.
Yes.
President of the United States. And Clarice.
And there's my wife.
Lovely Clarice. How would you find George Bush?
Well, you could see it right there.
Real person.
Pictures,
A Bubba.
yeah, the picture says 1,000 words. But I met him twice. Both he came out for a First Tee charity event. It was a fundraising event. So it wasn't like the First Tee where, that you played in with Lee Trevino. Mm-hmm. It wasn't with the kids where they play. It was just a pure charity event where they're raising money. So they paid a lot of money to play. He was I think he was one of the board of directors of the First Tee, or an advisor, something like that. And I know his dad was. Mm-hmm. And actually, they go back to the Walker Cup.
Right.
Yeah,
because it's named after
right.
his father or something.
Who was
But a real personable guy, like
he was instrumental in the USGA and,
Yes.
and the amateur events. So, but the first year he came out, he was wonderful, and he came out like 2 years later for the event, and the SUVs pulled up. They were actually silver SUVs, not black, but silver SUVs, and he steps out, and I'm right there to greet him, and he goes, "Chucker, how the hell are you? How the hell are you?"
Wow.
And he throws his hand out, and I'm thinking, I'm not sure if he saw a name tag. I had a jacket over my name tag, but somehow someone piped into it, or I don't know if he got it through his microphone or earphone or whatever it was, but he was.
I had read a long time ago that before Gore and Bush ran, they were leaving the Capitol or whatever, in the steps, and it was pouring rain. And Gore saw the rain, he looked up and he said, "This is absolutely shocking." And Bush said to himself, "This guy's a stiff." He says, "I could beat this guy." And that's where he first got the attention that he was gonna run.
Yeah. So I think on this day, my son was in the Marines at the time, and he was going through boot camp down in Southern California, in San Diego. So, and I had mentioned that to him somewhere around the 12th hole as I approached him, and what I wanted to do was I made a sign that said, "Platoon 214, Semper Fi. Go get 'em, boys." And I wanted to send that to my son at boot camp to inspire. I didn't put my son's name on it because I didn't want to have him picked out. So I just sent it to his drill instructor. And he ended up posting up. I met his drill instructor later when he graduated and became a Marine, and we still get along and correspond to this day. His senior drill instructor.
So President Bush held up the sign.
So he held up the sign, and then when he got to the 17th hole, my wife magically appears,
as she will magically do,
pretending that she's going to the beach club, and but she's all dressed to the nines.
I took the picture.
She's obviously very beautiful, and so she's with a friend of hers, and so they come up right at the right time to make this. And I happen to say, "Here's my wife," and he says something like, "Is that the beautiful woman who's the mother of a Marine?" And she says, "Yes. Can I get a picture with you?" And she goes, "Oh, you can get a kiss." But it just as the picture shows, he was just
real personable guy.
Very personable.
What other?
In fact, this is a great story. So this tells everything. So after he takes some pictures with my wife and myself and some other people on the 17th hole, and 17 is the par 3 that goes down right next to the beach club. So his caddy was Tucker, and Tucker's caddying for him, and he says, "Tuck, what do you think?" He goes, I think it's going to be a 4-iron for you, Mr. President. So he takes a couple waggles, basically hoods it over in the ocean. Hits a terrible shot. He looks back at Tucker and says, "Not too good, huh?" He goes, "No, sir, not very good at all." And he goes, "Well, I farted in my backswing."
So he got a presidential do-over for the fart. So, what if any other presidents have played at Pebble Beach when you were there? Clinton?
Bill Clinton played there when I was working there, but I was actually going on vacation that day. I was headed to Brazil. My wife's from Brazil, and that particular Saturday, Clinton was in town for a Rupert Murdoch Fox big to-do at Spanish Bay and the lodge at Pebble Beach. They had basically bought half the tee sheet, and if you were a guest of the Murdoch event or the Fox event, then you could just walk up and say, "Hey, I'm with the Rupert Murdoch event, and I'd like to play golf," and we'd slide them into the first available tee time that they held. If no one slotted into that time, we would just charge them.
Yeah.
So they'd be paying $450 or whatever it was, $495, for nothing. And
Is that for one guy to play around, or is that for a foursome?
No, now it's now it's $550.
$575, I think.
$575 plus you have to pay a caddy.
Plus caddy.
The caddy's minimum $110.
Probably about
Wow.
$100 plus tip.
So they won't let you play
Plus-
without a caddy.
Plus tip. No,
Plus tip.
They do let you play without a caddy, but the course is set up so that they have cart paths on every hole, and a cart path, you spend more time running back and forth to the cart. That's probably one of the reasons the course, of course, the picturesque nature of the course inspires people to take photos as well. But everybody's just running back and forth to get their clubs.
Oh, yeah.
You got to stay on the pod.
So-
Yeah, it's a cart path only, because you can imagine how much traffic there would be and how much of a beating the fairways would take.
Yeah.
Because COVID's changed everything. So they're not the hotel currently. October should be busting at the seams, and then November hits, and you have daylight savings that ends. So it slows down a little bit, and then Christmas, they get the holidays and everything like that. But you get in the summertime, and it's wall to wall people, and it gets pretty slow.
So you left our audience with Bill Clinton on a golf course.
Sorry. Yeah.
He's old news.
Yeah. So I didn't get a chance to see or meet Bill Clinton, but he ended up playing. I knew that he was playing that day that I was leaving, and so I went up to depart from San Francisco Airport, and the person that I kind of left in charge was my first assistant guy, and he was retired Army.
Hubert Allen.
Hubert Allen. So Hubert was retired military, and I told the Secret Service guys on the Friday that I met with them, because they wanted to do a walkthrough just in case he showed up, and we didn't know what he was going to do. As it turns out, I called from the hospitality room for Continental. I was in there having a beer. I was officially on vacation, having a cold one before my flight. And I said, well, maybe I better call up Hubert and see how everything's going. So I call him up, and he goes, hello. And I said, hey, Hubie, how's everything going? Where's the president? And he goes, he's on number 9. I said, where are you? He goes, I'm on number 9 too. I'm down by the green. He's coming this way. He's in his cart. He's getting closer. He's about 50 yards from me. And he's coming this way. I said, so he's right next to me. So I said, well, put him on. He goes, what? He goes, put him on the phone. So he hands the phone to Bill Clinton, and I hear this, hello. I said, Mr. President, this is Chuck Dunbar. I'm the head professional there. I'm sorry I'm not there to greet you. I'm headed to Brazil. My wife's already there with my kids, and I go for the last 2 weeks before school starts, and we all come back together. I heard your wife's from Brazil. I heard she's very beautiful.
Old Bill, huh?
There's a lot of beautiful women down there in Brazil. I said, yes, sir. I got one of them.
That sounds like Clinton, don't it?
And one thing, but we started talking, and at some point I said, I gotta go.
Wow, you gotta go.
I gotta go. I got a plane to catch. But he was very congenial on the phone, and he liked to talk.
Yeah.
Don't you got someplace you got to go, Mr. President? Don't you got something to do?
So, but apparently he played 1 through 9, and then he jumped over to 17 and 18 and played those 2 holes and just kind of cut in. But there was open tee times from their reservation, the Murdoch reservations before. But
That's a great story.
Yeah, it is.
So how about who have you disliked professionally and why? Really quickly, because we got to get Ken on.
One of the encounters that sticks with me is an experience I had with Mark Calcavecchia. And of course, he wouldn't know me from Adam and wouldn't probably even remember it. But practice rounds during the AT&T, around that time of year in February, our first tee time would be 7:30. And because of the AT&T and how many players there are, you got the pros and the amateurs, so you got a big field, 156 pros plus 156 amateurs. And they're all trying to play Pebble Beach, especially the amateurs, for their practice rounds. They want to play 3 rounds of practice rounds at Pebble, right, to get their money's worth. Well, Tiger, when he was playing before 2000, he's playing every year because he won in 2000. When he came back and Gogol collapsed. So Calcavecchia, Tiger Woods would come in at like 6:50, and we'd let him go because he just kind of wanted to go out there and do his own thing. He might be with Ken Griffey, who was his partner, but he would just be with one other person or himself, and he'd fire off on Wednesday morning and be the first one off, and we'd let him go at 10 minutes till, because he wouldn't make a reservation. He wouldn't go into the player hospitality and go to the desk and make any pre-registration or pre-appointments for scheduling a practice round. He would just show up. That was Tiger, and of course he wanted to avoid all the traffic and all the people that wanted to, So anyway, he stopped playing, and Calcavecchia shows up one morning, and it's 6:05, and sunrise was, like I said, our first normal tee time would be about 7:20, maybe 7:30, and that would be typically 20 minutes after sunrise. So sunrise was probably 6:45 or something like that. Sunrise at that time, 6:45, 6:50. Well, he shows up at like 6:10, and he walks up to the first tee, and he's taking some practice swings, just warming up. And I had this Japanese assistant. His name was Sony Bay, and Sony Bay is watching the tee. And we basically just cracked open the doors of the pro shop, and we're getting coffee. And he comes, and with his accent, he goes, "Chaco, Marco Calcavecchia, he is on the first tee. He's going to go." And I look down the fairway, and I've got lights of the mowers still right in the middle of the fairway. And he's already got one on the peg. So I go out there and I say, "Hey, Mr. Calcavecchia," I introduce myself and tell him what I did. And I said, I really appreciate that you want to get out there early, but as you can see, I've got maintenance guys out there mowing the fairways, and they're just trying to get the golf course ready for you as best they can. So if you could just let them finish up their work, I'll be happy to let you go at like quarter till. And that's 15 minutes before our regular first tee time, which is earlier than our normal first tee time. But that's I gotta hang on to you for at least 6:45, and then you can go. He looks at me and goes, "I can respect that. I used to cut grass for a living." So I said, "Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it."
Nice guy.
I take 2 steps off the tee. Whoosh, he takes a lash at it, gives me the bird, and says, basically, "Go to hell."
Wow. Really?
And walks.
Wow.
I was like, not good.
Not too classy, huh?
No.
He used to cut grass for a living, huh?
That was a
long way from cutting grass he is now.
That was just poor taste. I thought that was just...
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That was Bush.
Derek, we're going to bring on Ken Bentley.
So before you move on, I got something for your desk here. You got the fire hat for you, but since Frank spends so much time at down where I live, I know your baseball is going to be raffled off, right?
Yes.
Hold that up to your camera, to your chest, so we can get it on camera. We can't do it.
So this is a replica of the 18th hole.
Oh, wow, the signature hole, huh, Pebble?
All right, great. Thank you, Chuck.
That's really cool.
So that's for your set.
I thought it was one of Frank's divots.
Frank doesn't take divots.
He's a sweeper.
He's a sweeper. Our next guest is also keeping in line with our Masters theme for today. Executive Director of the Advocates Pro Golf Association, Ken Bentley. Welcome, Ken.
Hey, thanks, Frank. Thanks for having me.
I've known Ken for, 1980 or so when I hired him to replace Armin Katayan at the Phillips organization because Ken had been one of the first black tennis players at UC Irvine, and that must have been a trip. And then he left the Phillips organization and he went to the Nestle's Corporation, where he spent 30 years of his life, retired as a vice president of community affairs. So, Ken, welcome to the show. I want to introduce you to my partner, Billy O'Connor, one of the last great Irishmen in America. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your story?
Well, thanks, Frank. I was a tennis player growing up and got into golf because all the guys I was working with at Nestle were playing golf, and I felt like I was missing out on, 4 hours of being with the CEO and hearing all the business stories. So I started playing golf, got into it, and then I got a bunch of my friends together to go play golf twice a year, and we would get together and play different places around the country, and we would donate money to charities in those cities we'd go into. And so at one of these gatherings, we called it, I had a conversation with Adrian Stills, who had played on the PGA Tour, and I asked him why there weren't more African Americans on tour. And he said if we could start something, if we could develop an organization that had tournaments, we could probably develop some guys for the PGA Tour. So I went out, got some money from Nestle and Farmers, two companies that I'm associated with. And this was 11 years ago. And we started with 3 tournaments, largely on inner city courses like Rogers Park in Tampa and Chester, Washington in LA. And we started our partnership with the PGA Tour in 2013. And next year we're going to have 10 to 12 tournaments. We're going to play on places like Valhalla, TPC Scottsdale, TPC Louisiana. We'll be at Torrey Pines. We had a tournament this year at Torrey Pines on Saturday when the PGA Tour was on the South Course. Our guys were playing a tournament on the North Course. So it's grown dramatically. We've had 3 guys that are on the PGA Tour playing our tournaments, Harold Varner, Joseph Bramlett, and Tony Finau. So the organization has grown tremendously, and we're excited about the future.
That must be pretty gratifying to you to see those guys out there and doing so well.
Oh, it really is. I mean, what really has me excited are the young guys that are coming up. There are a number of guys that are coming up that are really showing a lot of promise. And we've started a player development program. So a lot of our guys, a lot of minorities that play golf don't have access to technology like TrackMan and top-level coaching. So we've been able to partner with TrackMan and other coaches around the country, who top 100 coaches around the country, to help our guys really get to the next level. So we'll be able to provide the technology and all the resources to our guys that the guys they're competing with have. So I think the future is really, really exciting.
That's great. Chuck Dunbar is with us, longtime head pro, Beach at Pebble. Chuck, do you have any questions for Ken? I know you both know Tiger Woods.
I've met Tiger, briefly, but and I've actually played with his college roommate, Jerry Chang.
And
Ken, you've played with Tiger quite a bit, haven't you?
Yeah, I've actually played.
And you're on a board of directors of the Tiger Woods Foundation, as well as the Farmers.
Right. And so through Farmers, I play in the Pro-Am at the Farmers Open, and I played with Tiger 4 times. So it's been that was an unbelievable experience playing with him.
What could you expand on? What was the difference between the first time and the fourth time?
Well, I was a little more used to all the crowds out.
Wow, yeah.
When you play with Tiger, even though Tiger gets the first tee time, and 6:40 in the morning, the first Pro-Am tee time, and it's tons of people out there. And so after I got over being worried about hitting somebody, killing somebody on that first tee, then I was okay. But Tiger was he was amazing. He read putts for us. I got one story about the second time we played. So we were playing at par three at Torrey Pines. That's downhill par three. And so Tiger hits his ball to 5 feet. And so I hit the best shot I hit all day, and I hit it to 4 feet. So we're walking to our ball, and he looks at me and he said, I didn't know you had it in you. And I said, well, why don't we put a little something on this putt? And so we get down there, and Tiger grinds over this putt like it's the U.S. Open. And my caddy, who was a buddy of mine, he said, Tiger, can you give Ken a read? He said, hell no, we have money on this. And it was a quarter. So he missed his putt, and I made mine. And he wouldn't give me the quarter. He wouldn't pay me the quarter he owed me, which is, from what I understand, typical Tiger Woods.
So how about the fourth time you played with him? Was it you were a little more comfortable? He knew you.
Yeah.
What was that like?
Well, that was a year or so ago, and we had a board member at Farmers that had passed away in his sleep, Stan Smith, and so we set up a scholarship in his name at the Tiger Woods Foundation, and Stan's son actually played with us in that foursome, and so Tiger spent time, talking to his son and asking about his dad. So it was a really relaxed time, and it was much different than the first time. And I've known Tiger now for a number of years, and I see him at all the board meetings.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The thing about Tiger, and I tell people this, I've been involved with other celebrities that have foundations, but Tiger is at every single board meeting. He's involved with all of the kids that get scholarships. He's totally involved in the direction of the organization, and it's really his foundation, and he puts his stamp on everything that it does.
I was going to ask you, our friend Armin Katayan obviously wrote the biography of Tiger Woods, and in that biography he's saying that is two different guys between Tiger now and Tiger like in 2005. Can you comment on that?
Well, yeah, I think I don't think I'm the same guy I was 50 years ago or so. But I think kids change you. I think life circumstances change you. And I definitely think Tiger is enjoying life more now. I mean, you see him, he's a lot more engaging. I think he's just enjoying life more. And I think before that, everything was about breaking Jack's record. And he was so focused on that. I remember we had a board meeting 2 years ago or so when Tiger was really going through all his back issues and he could hardly sit down at the meeting. But he told everyone on the board, he said, look, I'm really starting to think about my legacy. And I don't necessarily want my legacy to be that I won all these majors, but I want to reach 4 million kids. I want to change the lives of 4 million kids around the world. And that's the charge I'm giving the board and the staff. And so, I think he just sees life completely different than he did, back in 2005.
Great.
Well, that's a great story. I mean, you're thinking about the dynamic of life in general. When he's focused on being the best ever, it's almost like Maris with the pressure, to hit the home runs like he has. Now he's really looking back and looking at what's important in life, reaching 4 million kids. That's amazing.
So Chuck and I were saying the other day, Tiger really could win the Masters because if there's one tournament that sets up well for him, it's Augusta, because he really only has to beat 50 or 60 players as opposed to a normal tournament where he has to beat 140. What do you think his chances are this week to win another Masters?
I think he's got a good chance. I mean, every time Tiger Woods tees it up at a Masters, the course is just made for him. I think it's the fairways are a little wider, the rough's not as penal as some of the other courses. And I think it all comes down to how he's feeling. I do believe that Tiger focus his whole year on the Masters. That's the one tournament I think he feels like he can win. So I saw somebody bet like 85,000 or something crazy on Tiger to win the Masters. Some crazy amount. I wouldn't bet 85,000 on it.
That's a 20-1 too. That's a 20-1 payoff. That's a hell of a payoff.
Well,
It's still 85,000 though.
Yeah.
Since we have the former bookkeeper here,
Yeah, the bookkeeper. That's a nice way of putting it.
Billy, what are the odds on the Masters?
This year it looks like Byron DeChambeau. He's 8-1.
Bryson.
Yeah, he's Bryson DeChambeau.
Let me
Because I don't know about golf, man.
please read these off.
Bryson DeChambeau 8-1.
Okay.
10-1 is Rory McIlroy.
Oh, okay, you got that right. That's
I'm
a good
Irish.
Irish
I'm
name.
a Mick. I can figure that out.
Keep going.
And then 11-1 is Dustin Johnson.
Oh, okay. Let's go.
And then 12-1 is John Rahm.
John Rahm.
Ooh,
John Rahm, okay.
Not bad. 14-1 Justin Thomas. Xander Schauffele. Xander who?
Xander
16-1.
Schauffele. Yeah.
From San Diego.
Xander Schauffele
He's up and
16-1.
Now, how about
Tiger's 20-1.
Tiger's 20-1.
But so the favorite obviously is Bryce.
How about this guy? What about this guy?
Yeah, Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a name he's got there, right? Irish or Japanese, Colin Morikawa. He's 28-1.
Well, he won the PGA though. He won the PGA, so.
Yep.
Yeah, at Harding Park.
So is he Irish or Japanese? What's the story with this guy?
Same thing.
Colin Morikawa. But so Tiger's 20-1. 85,000 somebody laid on him to win at 20-1, huh?
At 20-1.
It was Phil Mickelson.
No, I do like his chances.
Dickerson would be reading some putts for him if he laid 85,000 on
Yeah,
him.
for sure. So let me ask both of you guys, who would your dream foursome be, living or dead? 4 people, living or dead, be your dream foursome. And I'll start with Chuck.
Arnold Palmer's got to be in there. Just with my interactions with him, he's got to be number 1. Probably Ben Hogan, number 2. And let's throw George Bush in there.
George Bush, senior or junior?
Junior.
Okay, so have a good time.
Oh yeah, because he'd be drinking beer and cracking jokes and farting.
And Ken, how about you?
Arthur Ashe would be a guy that I regret that I never got a chance to play golf with, and who was really my hero growing up. So Arthur would be 1. I think Barack Obama would be 2, and then probably Tiger. Tiger would be the other one.
That'd be a great foursome.
Yeah,
they both would be. They both would be terrific. But, you mentioned Arthur Ashe. Why don't you talk about a little about some of the things you encountered as a black tennis player growing up in the 60s?
Well, I guess a couple things really come to mind. One was meeting Arthur. Of course, that was probably the greatest thrill even to this day in my life. I was playing in a tournament, which was the biggest tournament I'd ever played in, the Pacific Southwest Open at the LA Tennis Club.
Jack Kramer was running that, right?
Yeah. And his son is a friend of mine. We're on the SCTA board together. But Arthur had just won the U.S. Open. I'm sitting on a bench, the only African American in this tournament, and I'm sitting on a bench by myself. And he saw me over there, broke through the crowd, came over, introduced himself, and he said, "If you ever need anything tennis-wise, be sure to get in touch with me." And he gave me his phone number and his address. And the next year, he came back again. He watched me play. And then we went in to get some lunch. And he looked at me and he said, "How are your grades?" And I said, my grades are pretty good. He said, "Well, good, because that's your future, not tennis."
Wake-up call, okay?
Yeah, it was a wake-up call. And here, my hero, a guy that I look up to, and I'm thinking I'm going to be the greatest player in the world. And it was probably the best advice I ever got, because I started to realize I needed something else to fall back on. I played tennis in college and really enjoyed it, but I started to realize that, maybe I wasn't going to be the greatest player in the world.
That's a great
But
story.
we had a friendship right after he got diagnosed having HIV. He called me. I was at Nestle, and he said, I really, really want to do something that helps kids. And we had him over for lunch at Nestle, and he talked to us about what he wanted to do. And so we gave him $100,000 to start his Safe Passage Foundation, and really was the kind of legacy that he wanted to leave. I had just an unbelievable friendship with him that really helped shape my life, because he was so involved, and we had a number of conversations about really what your legacy should be. We talked about Tiger, but Arthur was really all about, helping kids and giving back. And so, it was a real inspiration to me to say that this guy who was my hero growing up became a good friend of mine.
That's great. That was about the time, the late 60s, the early 70s, when another trailblazer in golf was Charlie Sifford. Can you tell me a little about your relationship with Charlie and how people can get involved with the APGA?
Well, Charlie, when I interviewed Charlie a couple times when I was writing for different magazines, and Charlie, for a long time, was really bitter about the way he was treated. Charlie, can you imagine playing in a golf tournament and you reach down and there's all kinds of stuff in the cup, people yelling at you, calling you names? Charlie, it really impacted him for a long time. But at the end of his life, I think people started to appreciate what he did, and he was a different guy. His son is really involved in our organization. And we were able a few years ago to change the name of the street that goes into Chester, Washington Golf Course, where Charlie actually played and developed his game. We changed that to Charlie Sifford Boulevard. So we've Charlie was an inspiration to Tiger. Actually, I had a chance last year to introduce Charlie to Tiger Woods' mom. And she told Charlie's son how much Tiger admired Charlie, and how much he meant to Tiger, how much Charlie meant to him, and how inspired he was by what Charlie had done. And so it meant a lot to his son. But we use Charlie, as an inspiration for our guys, because, he really won twice on the PGA Tour, had a great career. So he inspires our guys. And for people that want to get involved in our organization, they can go to apgatour.org and learn all about the APGA Tour.
So you mentioned Charlie won twice. He won 67, I think, in Hartford, and he won 69 in L.A. and at Riviera. And at Riviera, they have portraits hanging in the pro shop of all the guys that won. And they're hanging down is Charlie Sifford. Charlie is a pissed off guy with a cigar. And I guess it really meant something to him to have all these white folks looking up at him and looking down at him with disdain, because that's what his portrait is in the pro shop at Riviera.
Yeah, he actually won it at Rancho. They used to have the LA Open. But yeah, I'm sure Charlie, that had to put a smile on Charlie's face when they put his picture up there. But for him to win the LA Open back in '69, that was amazing, what he had to go through. But he really changed the last few years of his life, and when he got inducted into the Hall of Fame, and some of the things that all the recognition he started to get. He got a honorary PhD from St. Andrews University. So a lot of things, a lot of good things happened to him at the end of his life. So I think he died a really happy man.
Oh, that's a great story.
Let me ask you a question, Frank, just for the uninitiated like me. Is Charlie Sifford like the Jackie Robinson of golf or something?
I would say yes.
Okay, yes, he definitely is.
He was the breakthrough guy.
Yeah, he was a breakthrough guy. Yeah. He was never got a chance to play the Masters, which was one of the huge regrets. But he was the first real African American to get his card on the PGA Tour.
Lee Elder was the first one. Masters.
Lee Elder played the first one to play in the Masters.
Now, was that because it's in Augusta because it was in Georgia? Or?
Yeah,
well, Augusta runs by their own rules, you know.
Right.
And, in fact, I think it was this past year was going to be the 50th anniversary of Lee Elder playing in the Masters, I believe.
Yeah.
And I think there was some a groundswell of people wanting him to be one of the people that hit the ceremonial first tee shot. And I'm not sure. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, well, Ken may have different feelings about Lee Elder, but my experience with Lee Elder are not as positive as they would be with Charlie Sifford.
Hey, Frank, I have to agree with you on that one.
Yeah.
Charlie was Lee Elder was different. I mean, I do feel bad that Charlie didn't get a chance to play the Masters because he actually, in today's rules, he would have gotten in.
Yes, but they can invite anybody that they want to invite, and they obviously chose to exclude Charlie Sifford.
Right.
And that was a shame
that was a conscious choice.
Yeah, it was a conscious choice.
Right.
And as the winner of both Hartford and especially the LA Open, he should have been in there and he deserved to have been in there. But again, like you said, he got his satisfaction when he was voted into the PGA Golf Hall of Fame. Let me ask you guys both, if you had one round to play, where would you play it? With your dream foursome now, you've already picked your dream foursome. Where do you think you'd play? Ken, I'll let you start.
I'd want to play Augusta. I've heard so many amazing things about the place. So before I die, I would like to play that. Before that, it would have been Pebble Beach, but I did have a chance to play Pebble Beach. Got a great story about Pebble Beach. I was dating my wife at the time, and she took me to Pebble Beach for my birthday, and that's why I married her. Say that all the time.
And you're still married to her.
I'm still married to her.
Married on the grounds of Pebble Beach?
No, we didn't get married on the grounds, but I knew I was going to marry her when I was on 18.
Chuck, you performed a service on a wedding on the 7th tee.
Yeah, I became an ordained minister to marry a couple that we met in Lexington.
Oh, is that right?
And they wanted to get married in Pebble Beach. Yep. So Chuck said, "Sure, I can marry you." He didn't have any credentials, but he said, "Sure, I can marry you." So he quickly got ordained and certified as a registered preacher.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So Chuck, where would you play?
Well, I played Augusta, fortunately, and I played a number of great tracks, but I've never really played much golf outside of Old Head.
Old Head.
That's old Sleigh Head.
The
old head of Kinsale. You're talking about now.
County Cork.
And County Cork. That's about maybe 11 miles from where I was born.
Right.
And that course, now I'm not a golfer, and my best day, I was like 92. And that's when I was playing all the time. But Kinsale, when I used to go to Kinsale, it was a lighthouse out at the end of a long, long bit of rocks. Matter of fact, the Lusitania was sunk right outside that lighthouse. That's where it went down. And I would walk out to the end of the lighthouse, and the wind in October, you'd almost have to hang on to the side of the lighthouse not to blow into the Atlantic. And somebody told me they were going to build a golf course. I said, are they out of their minds?
Well, and Old Head is not an old golf course.
No, it's a new golf course. Yeah,
new,
that's what I used to go out there before it was a golf course.
I hate to burst your bubble. I'm not choosing Old Head as my course.
No, it's a tough course.
It's up there. I love that golf course. It's one of my favorites.
Do you?
But if I had to take my dream foursome on a course, I'd probably take St. Andrews, the home of golf. I've never been.
No, I've never been.
So I'd have to say St. Andrews.
Did you play St. Andrews? Yeah.
I have. Yeah, I played
St. Andrews.
Yeah, I played St.
Yeah, I've never
Andrews.
been to England or Scotland or Wales. That island.
Now, there's
so.
3 courses there, Frank, isn't there?
Oh, there's a lot of
Oh,
courses
it
there.
got the Jubilee, the new course, the
Yeah.
old course.
The old course,
There-
the new
I think
course.
there's 6.
In '89 or so, we were scouting London for head of the class. So my wife said, "Why don't we stay over and go to Scotland?" So I said, "Sure." She said, "You can play golf." I said, "Even better." So we went there and I played 3 courses, and it was a great trip.
Yeah. Most people don't know it's closed on Sundays.
It's closed on Sundays, and people walk their dogs on the golf course.
Picnic and walk their dogs.
Picnics, walk their golf.
Yeah.
The only Sundays that's open is during the Open Championship.
Yeah, and really, and that's how I distinguish it between. It's still a sport over there, because it's not about the revenue on Sunday, because they can fill it with tourists
easily.
or
Yeah,
locals,
sure.
whatever. So golf is truly still a sport over there, where it's a sport here, but it's a business as well.
Yeah.
And the business dominates. Whether you're a resort or a public golf course or a tournament.
Yeah.
It's all about corporate money and revenues.
Isn't everything?
Yep.
Everything
So they-
seems to be
You
nowadays.
can imagine how much revenue they forego by closing on Sunday.
Yeah.
So are you guys going to Coles Pebble on Sunday?
Yeah. fat chance. Fat chance of that. So Ken, thanks for so much for being with us. You have any last words you'd like to get in there?
Well, I want to thank you, Frank. The time I spent at the Phillips organization was one of the best times of my career. And it really, all the stuff I learned there and the opportunity you gave me, I appreciate that even to this day.
Well, thanks. That's nice of you to say. That's nice of you to say. And Chuck, any final words from you?
It was just a pleasure being on your show. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. Appreciate
And,
both of you. It's nice meeting
I
both
enjoyed
of
the
you.
conversation.
Nice Monday. Yeah.
Great. Thank you guys both for being here.
Okay. Take care. Take care, guys.
Hey, take care. I got to tell you, Chuck was talking about the old head of Kinsale, right?
Right.
Now, he's played the course. I never played the course. I can't even believe they built the golf course there. But I've heard that it's as much as a 6-club difference, whether the wind is behind you or in front of you. That's how bad the wind is, But I was playing in another famous course in Ireland. And I just wanted to play the course. And I knew. I mean, like I said, on my best day, I'm a 92. But I was playing with a caddy. They make you play with a caddy, especially if you're a Yank. You got to play with a caddy because it's another 75 pounds for the caddy, And I was playing with about a 15-year-old kid. And I'm playing military golf. Left, right. I'm all over the place, But I don't care. I'm playing golf. Finally, the kid looks up. It was a par 3 surrounded by water, right? And I knew this kid probably had about a 3 handicap. And I was like, that's why it blows my mind when you're playing with George Lopez, you're playing with pros, that you don't get intimidated. I was intimidated by a 13-year-old caddy, by a kid. I was intimidated. I was playing terrible. So finally we get to this par 3. It's an island hole. And I hit the ball and I hit it into the water. Naturally, I missed the par 3. And the little kid looks up with the Irish humor. He didn't miss a beat. He looks up, he says, "That time, Yank, you managed to miss the whole country of Ireland." He said, "You little son of a bitch." But I love that Irish humor, boy. He couldn't wait to give it to me,
Okay, so we're doing our football picks every week. This week we'll do your master pick, and you don't know nothing about odds. So why don't you make a pick, and I'll make a more selective pick because I have a little bit more information than you. So we'll
probably do.
We'll reverse the roles this week.
So my master pick in football.
No, your master pick in golf.
Oh, in
Your
golf,
Mook.
my master pick. Well, I don't know anything about golf. You do.
So
I'm going to go with the Mick. I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy. I'm going to go with the Irish kid. I mean, what?
That's as good a choice as any.
Why not? He's 11-1. I mean,
Okay, so who do I think? I think that DeChambeau is the obvious choice, so I'm not going to pick him. I think that Dustin may. I'm going to go with Xander Schauffele. How about that?
well, you can pronounce his name. That's better than I could do. Xander Schauffele. I mean, he's got a hell of a nice name to it. He sounds like he should be a concert pianist. But and now, welcome to the stage, Xander Schauffele. So yeah, cool, brother. I'm going to go with the Mick. I'm going to go with Rory McIlroy. I'm going to stay with my own.
Next week, we've got the election coming up. That promises to be a shit show. And the week after that, we've got Military Appreciation Week, Veterans Day. We've got 3.
You got a couple of heavyweights coming on for that.
We got 3 heavyweights coming on for that.
Derek's dad, too.
Yes, that would be the 3rd heavyweight. So with that, we should say goodbye and see you next week.
Yeah, see you next week. Thanks for looking in. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Derek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Next week's guest, Avatar star Stephen Lang.
We'll see you next week.